Hi, everyone, and welcome to the MLTI device component question and answer session. I'm going to ask that everybody mute themselves, please. This session is being recorded and will be posted on our website by the end of the day on Monday, May 10th. My name is Beth Lambert, and I'm the Director of Innovative Teaching and Learning at the Maine Department of Education. I'm joined today by my team, Emma Banks, John Graham, Jordan Dean, and Brandy Coda. Thank you for the many emails of support and gratitude around the MLTI 2.0 one-to-one device component. We also extend our gratitude to you, as this has been a collaborative journey, one that began 2 years ago when the Department of Education launched our Think Tank series, where our team traveled to all of the regions of the state to engage in conversations with stakeholders around the success and challenges of the MLTI program and the hopes and needs to the future iteration of the program. During these sessions, we consistently heard that the device component was a valued and necessary part of the MLTI initiative. We heard requests for more choice, while others pleaded with us to ensure that the state would procure contracts for devices. When we convened the MLTI Advisory Board in January of 2020, made up of membership from 16 educational organizations and representing the diverse needs and stakeholders in the state. The board worked throughout the year to design the recommendation for how to bring MLTI into its next phase, MLTI 2.0. The board tackled how to provide more choice while still ensuring equity and high quality learning devices and state negotiated contracts. The result is the MLTI 2.0 one-to-one device component to offer a menu of 6 devices representing the 3 operating systems currently being run in Maine schools. The state would pay for a per eligible student and staff allocation toward the purchase of a device on this menu. We committed that the state share would cover 100% of at least one device on the menu. If an eligible unit decided to select a device from the menu that exceeded the state share, they would make up the cost with their local share. The devices on the menu would all come with 3 years of MDM licensing and 3 years extended warranty, including accidental damage coverage. With the help of an advisory board subcommittee, we drafted the device specifications and the RFP was released. We had 59 device bids in response to our RFP. Our RFP evaluation team, made up of the MLTI team, content experts from the Maine Office of Information Technology, a representative from the Technology Directors Association, as well as an advisory board member who is also a tech integrator at a rural school district. We all reviewed the proposals and selected the top devices in each of the 6 categories. This RFP team then participated in vendor demonstrations of each of the devices. We also received the devices to try them out ourselves. The devices were tested by our MLTI team, as well as by the State Office of Information Technology, and in our schools by the Technology Director and Tech Integrator on our review team. Once the devices had proven that they could stand the rigor of the needs of our schools today, the vendors were awarded conditional awards, and we released the menus and device allocation to the Maine education field. We are now engaging in the contracting process with the vendors. Once contracts are finalized and executed, eligible units will be able to begin ordering from the menu. The state provided share is $459 per eligible student and staff. This covers 100% of the cost of 3 out of the 6 devices on the menu. With that overview, I will begin to go into the question and answer session. The process for today's session is to please enter your questions in the chat. I will read them out loud and answer them as they come in. We have also placed a link to the FAQ in the chat. Please do your best to ensure that your question is not already answered in the FAQ so that we have time to answer the new questions during this session. I may skip over your question if it's one that is in the FAQ in order to get to new questions that have not yet been answered. So with that, I remind you again to make sure that your microphone is muted, and I will begin to read through the chat and answer the questions. All right. Will JAMP School be one of the MDM solutions that qualify or only JAMP Pro? Excuse me. So John has just put the FAQ in the chat for those of you, if you want to review it, if you haven't seen it yet. The JAMP MDM that is listed on the device one-to-one specs is what comes with it. We cannot choose what the vendor bid during the RFP process, and we have to take what they bid to come with it. So the question, when do we anticipate being able to place the orders? As I mentioned in the introduction, of course, we are in the contracting process. Depending on how smoothly and quickly those contracts go, will be when we can start placing orders. We can't do ordering or expect the vendors to take orders until there's an active contract in place. So that's begun, and we'll let you know as soon as we anticipate when that will wrap up. How should we address returning homeschool students? So in this year, this sort of crazy year of the pandemic, we understand that there's extraordinary circumstances and the student counts are lower because of effects of the pandemic and students choosing to not enroll in school this year. What we've done is we've taken both the October and the April student enrollment counts for this year and given you the highest number, whichever that was, so that if you had students who came back throughout the year and your April number was larger, we gave you that. If over the summer, we understand that there's some that they didn't come back this year, but you anticipate that should some of the restrictions of the pandemic or all of the restrictions of the pandemic be gone in the fall, it may return. We are looking at what we can do for a process for that and how we can figure out a way to ensure that next year, if you're participating in this program, all of your 7th and 8th graders will have that device. At this point, we need to kind of have an idea, get closer to the actual fall to know. At this point, there's nothing you can do in anticipation because until they are enrolled, we won't be able to actively come up with a solution for that. For Chromebooks, will they be able to be added to our admin console, and will there be a separate one for MLTI? I'm going to defer to either of my team members, Emma or John, who are more familiar with the specifics of that offering for this question.
Yep, I believe you'd be adding it to your own if you have one, and if you don't have one, then you would just establish a new one if that's the MDM that comes with the device you choose. Or you could use an existing one if it's compatible with the device as well.
Is it your intent that devices will arrive in time for the start of school? It absolutely is, and in fact, it's written in the contracts that we're working on right now. It is part of that, is that they need to have them. So it's absolutely our intent. And if I had a date, I would absolutely tell you. And once we get to the point with the contracts where we've agreed on a delivery date, we will be sharing that with our schools. Our school is new to MLTI. Is there a time? Sorry. Is there a time to answer between the questions that you can explain the program? Absolutely. Let me move through a couple of the questions that are in the queue, and then I will come back a little bit to explain some of those components. Maybe it's in the FAQ. I shouldn't be reading these live, right? On the iPad option, can we pay more for a larger hard drive? Same would be true for MacBooks or any of the devices. So this goes back to an earlier question just this afternoon, is due to state procurement law in the RFP process, what a vendor chooses to bid is all that we can purchase. And so the device that is purchased off of this menu needs to be the device that was bid. So for the iPad option, the size that they bid is the size that we will be purchasing. There isn't an option for any of the devices. This is a specific question about iPad, but for any of the devices, you can't purchase a Chromebook with 8 gigs. You can't. It must be for the specs that are listed on the menu on the website. When a student transfers, does the device travel with the student? My guess is that the device stays with the school. Yes, the school owns the device. If we opt for MacBook Airs, do the terms of the program allow us to finance the balance locally? So this question is a popular one for any of the devices that require a local share, so that are above the 3 devices that are above the $459 allocation. The state will pay when the state will be billed the $459 for each of your devices, and we will pay that immediately. You will be billed, your district will be billed directly from the vendor. So that is an agreement that you will make between you and the vendor. And so it will be between your local district and the vendor to negotiate any possible financing or payment plans that you might be interested in. And there's a question on about the Dell device that is offered. We actually have 2 Dell devices, and there'll be a link in the chat here momentarily that will take you to information about each of the devices and what that is. Oh, I see. I understand the question now. Okay, which one is it? Yes, there are 2. Sorry. So since it looks like the questions have slowed down for those initial ones, totally fine if you, as you think of them. John put into the chat around an update around some of the elements of MLTI. I'll also talk about a little bit of the components of MLTI 2.0. There's, of course, this device component, which has just been released around providing one-to-one devices for eligible 7th and 8th grade students and their staff that choose to opt into the program. It's an opt-in program. We also have a robust professional learning plan that goes along with the MLTI that you are participating in, that includes statewide with conferences and professional learning around statewide goals, regional opportunities for cohorts and professional learning at that regional model, and then also school-based coaching. So in your schools, you'll be provided with a coach that will come and work with all of the MLTI teachers in that school. Additionally, we support the infrastructure through supporting the main school library network, as well as having a network infrastructure specialist in as a state position who will be able to build capacity and support schools in making sure that their infrastructure is able to provide students what they need for today's learning needs. I'm going to now go back. Will you consider negotiating expedited shipping if the arrival dates look to be cutting things close? Yeah, I can't obviously comment on what will happen during negotiating the contracts and what we'll need to work out, but I certainly appreciate the suggestion as far as how we can make sure that we get them there. All of the vendors are very aware of the need for the devices in time for you all to have them ready for school. What was meant by the allotment may have been may have to be adjusted in the future years for the tech integration piece. I'm going to need a follow-up on that question to understand, or if anyone on my team understands the question, please chime in. The allocation for FY23 has been reduced to 1 grade. Does that still need to be used for an adjacent grade? Yes. Yes, it will continue. So in year 2, you're choosing to either expand up to 9th grade or down to 6th grade, or if the devices move with the student and they naturally go 8th to 9th, then you'd be filling in the 7th grade. Yep. Is there a notification specific to our school for what we are allowed and how to access the equipment specifically? Yes, there is. If you go onto our website, which someone will put into the chat here for you, there's a table where you can find your school and what your allocation is. Is staff device purchased this year only, or could we skip this year and do qualified staff devices for year 2 and 3? So staff device purchase will happen this year, and then we will monitor them. So they're meant to be 3-year devices. And so if you have staff this year and then next year need to include new staff, then we will add them to your staff. You'll get those staff next year. If you were to not take staff this year, then and take them next year, then yes, that would be fine. We're just going to monitor, so you're not getting the full staff allocation every year because those staff aren't changing grades like the students are. Will year 2 be negotiated like year 1? I think I understand this question. If not, please provide a follow-up if I'm misreading it. But so the RFP was for a 3-year contract. So once these contracts are negotiated, they'll be good for 3 years. After the completion of the 2nd year, we will negotiate again. We will put out another RFP, for another process going forward. So there won't be new devices and a new process every year. Every 3 years, we'll look at that. And that allows us for, so your year 2 devices will be the same as year 1. Thank you. Okay, providing this level of an allocation in 21-22 means that 22-23 for budget for devices will need to be adjusted in order to realize the holistic technology integration program. Okay, all right. I'm understanding your question now. Providing this level of an allocation in 2021 means that the 2022-23 MLTI program budget for devices will need to be adjusted in order to realize the MLTI 2.0 holistic technology integration program that focuses on professional learning, software allocations, and monitoring, support, and development. Sounds familiar? I think it's my words. So what this means is that in order to provide the device allocation of $459 and to cover 100% of 3 of the device costs and to cover both 7th and 8th grade, it meant that going forward, the device allocation will be for 1 grade. And in order to do that is so that the budget is not going to completely be consumed by only device allocations. So we were able to make that work into this year for those 2 grade levels. But going forward, the device allocation will only be for 1. And that's to allow the idea of the holistic technology integration program is providing for all the professional learning, software allocations, which are part of MLTI 2.0, but will happen in year 2 because they weren't able to happen and get implemented in year 1. And then all of the monitoring and support that is part of this program. Can we include additional staff other than 7, 8 and pay the school DOE? I think what this is referring to is, can we buy additional devices that are not included in our allowance? And yes, whether it's for staff or whether it's for students, you can purchase at your own expense, the local expense, as many devices as you would like off of these contracts. And you'll be billed directly from the vendor for whatever is over and above the allowance that you have. There is conjecture that the higher per device allocation in this year came at the expense of future funding. Is this correct? No. So the higher per device allocation just meant that where if we had done a lower per price device allocation, which would have meant we would have only covered, say, the one device that we had said we had guaranteed, we had promised that we would ensure that the allocation would cover at least one device on that menu. If we had done that, then we would have had more money in the budget for those other things this year. And then going forward, that allocation would always have been much smaller. So I don't know if this is exact, but say $300, right? Like was that allocation. The difference in that allocation just means that we were able to make it work this year by trimming everything else down. Next year, the allocation will be the same. We've committed to that piece. So you'll still get that for those devices, but we had to cut it to one grade, or else the program would every year consume the entire budget and there would be nothing else of the program for all of the additional services. And what that would have done is, as I think you've probably already done the math, if that allocation was that much smaller and most of the devices required a significant local share, then that would have been an incredible burden on all of the schools, or given little choice. And we really wanted to be able to provide choice, as that was something that was important to the design. So as I said, the software allocation, one of the questions is how much remains of the budget for the PD and software for year one. We haven't made any cuts to the professional learning and our plan to move forward with all that is going to be offered. We were able to fund that with additional funds. The software allocation, however, as I said earlier, will not be realized in year one. It will be added into year two. So the implementation will happen sort of in that phase 2 of the software allocation. I see on the website that we are approved for grades 7 and 8. Is there a link to how many we are approved to in each grade? Yes. Again, I'll ask somebody, thank you, just put it in there, that will get you that table that has just been put in the chat will get you directly to how much you've been allocated, how many students, how many staff. What questions did people in the morning group ask that we should be asking? That's a great question. You've covered a lot of questions that you guys have already hit on. The FAQ is pretty up to date, so we've been trying to add them as questions have come in. So you're kind of up to date coming in at the second session. This question is popular. If we choose a device that costs less than $459, can we use the rest of the money for software? No, this budget is for the devices. So it's a cap at $459, but if you choose a device that is less than $459, we'll pay that amount fully. There isn't a carryover, or you take that money is extra. So that's just where that lands. What does it mean that the device allocation going forward will be for 1 year? Does that mean we get to add one grade level each year, up or down, from 7th and 8th grade for 2 years? Yes. So, and I apologize if I said 1 year, it's one grade. So instead of this year, it's 7th and 8th grade. We're filling the 7th and 8th grade. Last year, there was a bridge year. There was no devices provided. So we're doing the 2 grade levels. Going forward now, each year you'll get one additional grade levels allocation. And so you'll either go up or down. So that's the 7, 8, 9 or 6, 7, 8, and that'll be your choice, which direction you go in each year. For the future of the program. So in the way you probably are aware maybe that state budgets are approved on every 2 years. We have no reason to believe that going forward, now that MLTI 2.0 has been budgeted and approved, that this budget will not continue to go forward. But we can say with certainty we have the budget for next year all set, and then there'll be another biennium budget, and that will have the next 2 years. But we intend to keep it consistent and funded just as it has been for the last 20 years. I'm going to re-answer this question, but I just answered it. If you went lower, if you bought a lower cost device, can you take that money and apply it towards another device on the menu? And the answer is no. The $459 goes to one device. If you don't spend the whole $459, that just is it is what it is, and it doesn't go into sort of a large pool where you just deduct from that. $459 per device. What is the procedure for opting into MLTI? So we are working on finalizing the participation agreement so that we can get it out to schools so that you'll have it all ready and in place so that you're able to purchase those devices right away. And the procedure is we have an agreement, and that agreement says you'll be using this device allocation to purchase, simply put, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. We'll be sending it out to you in the coming week, but that you'll be getting this allocation for the purpose of purchasing. It must be purchased off of this menu, all of the things that we've sort of talked about here, and that also you agree to participate fully in the program. As I kind of shared a bit earlier, the program has multiple components. One of those is around professional learning and participation in that professional learning as part of being an MLTI. And so we want to make sure that schools are taking advantage of the school-based coaching that we'll be providing and the different regional events and professional learning communities and statewide conferences. So there's an expectation also that administrators agree to support the program and their teachers in doing that. But the specifics will be sent out to each district probably in the coming, I would say, hopefully it will be through our process in about a week. And as soon as we have them, it will be posted on our website and sent to you directly. So a question, what do we do if we feel our allotment numbers are inaccurate? So these numbers are pulled directly from NEO. So if they are what was entered in and are the official state numbers for your enrollment. So you'll need to address that with your data team and make sure that NEO is correctly entered it may be that your team did not do an April entry. And so you'll want to make sure that that's done and up to date. It looks like the allotment numbers don't include staff. So there are two tables because we pull them from two different data sources. One is for your student count and the other is for your staff account. And I'm sure magically in a few seconds here, the link for the staff allotments is going to appear in the chat for you to find. Voila, there it is. Yes, so again, this question that was from earlier in this session was, due to our COVID numbers, that our enrollment may be low due to students who have chosen to homeschool this year. So like I said, we've done our best based on the information that we have of who you have right now. We can't provide an allocation with the expectation that those students will come back. We're working on a process where if they do come back and you find in the fall that because of that, the 2% buffer will not cover the enrollment because this year, and this would be a one-time thing, this year, due to those homeschoolers, due to the pandemic and them coming back, it would exceed that 2% buffer. We're working on a way to be able to ensure that you can get additional devices to make sure that all of your 7th and 8th grade have them. Can we buy more devices beyond the allocation that are from the same pool? Yes, you can buy more devices at local cost. You can buy as many devices as you want off of these contracts. And it will just be, if you, whatever is your share that you're purchasing will just be billed directly to you from the vendor. I've just hired a technology integrator. This is probably similar to the homeschool question, and we're working on a process. Yes, absolutely. So yes, for same thing for staff, if they're not currently part of your school, but will be, and it's a new position that will be working with 7th and 8th grade, yes, it'll be under that same, whatever that process is, because it's our intent that this cohort has what they need. We want to make sure that that's happening. When would a purchase order need to be sent for extra devices? So I don't have a timeline right now. If you're talking about, if this is referring to extra devices like in this process for students next year, if it's talking about if you want to order more devices than what's in the allocation, that will all be in the same ordering window. In our contracts, we will decide, more than the allocation. So yeah, if you're ordering more devices. Now, in our contract, there will be, if you order by this date, you'll get them by this date. And that's for the purposes of, the sort of yearly order that the DOE is gonna supplement. You will be able to purchase off of this contract throughout the year. So if, for instance, in the middle of next year or come October, you decide, we need to purchase devices for this, or you figure out, you have some money and you need to spend, you can purchase devices at any time, or it's our intent that the contracts will allow for that going forward. But when we're ordering so that you have them for the start of school, there will be more specific timelines where you'll say you have to order within, this month window so that we ensure that you get delivery on time. Will devices ship asset tagged? I'm going to just check in too with Emma and John, but I believe that was not, some of the bids included that and some did not. Is your memory the same, looks like?
That was the case, yeah.
Yep. So it depends on, and you can look into the each device. Some that was part of their bid to provide that, and some it was not. Did we get special pricing, or is this all retail MSRP? So we evaluated these based on the bids. Of course, the bids are including 3 years of MDM and the extended warranty with the accidental damage coverage. And when you look in them and see more details, some of them provided additional services and parts, not parts, but like pieces and additional services, I guess what I can say to that. So we did not compare them to a retail MSRP because it was more than what that, or it's not part of the RFP process, but it's also not what you typically would purchase off the shelf in a store. But that's not part of their bids to compare that to us. They didn't have to provide that with us. So the assumption is they were all competitive, as I said, we got 59 bids, and these were the top 6, and cost is about a third of the scoring points that you get for when you're evaluating an RFP. Yes, is specific info included on what will be considered accidental damage for each device? So we've asked during the demonstration period, we asked the vendors to provide us with more details on their warranties. And so those links are available on the one-to-one device menu that we have posted on the website. So you can click on there and you should get down more closely into what that accidental damage is covered. I'm also thinking about the cases, whether we got a good deal on anything through Apple because of the quantity. In other words, would we be able to order them through MLTI or would we just get them separately? So the cases that are provided when they're provided with the device, that is what will come with it. There's not an option to purchase cases separately. The contract is for the device, the case, the MDM, the warranty. It all comes together. It doesn't pieces of them. If that's what the question is, like there isn't an option to order cases separately through the MLTI contract. So that would be that. Without scaring away vendors, will there be consequences for late delivery? So I hear in the questions the absolute concern as we get closer and closer to the summer and moving through and understanding the demand of getting these to you. I think obviously in the contract we will be holding to getting those devices delivered on time, and certainly if you know contracts are binding and vendors need to be able to do that. So we're optimistic and hopeful, but you know, as far as consequences, it's a contract, and so there are, you know, a contract is legally binding. Huh. Do we have any input on device color from the vendors? Would be nice to get student devices in one color and staff in another. I don't remember that being in the proposals at all around color. It may, if anyone on the team has information, please share, but otherwise we'll have to get back to you on that one. And we'll definitely update the FAQ when we find out, because that hasn't been something.
I was just saying, I don't remember anything coming up about, you know, colors or color choices with different devices.
Yeah, so. Gold rose for staff. We could work with that. I like that. So we'll look into that one. In the future, maybe that's an RFP requirement that they should have an original color for MLTI, whatever we'll decide that is. every school will want their school colors. So some folks are sort of private message me that they have to head out, and that's totally fine. You're, no attendance taken. Get what you need from this session and pop it out as you need to. We are recording the chat questions. I've obviously answered them here for anybody who wants to rewatch and relive, but also we'll take all of these questions and put them into the FAQ with the answers, so that if you're like, what did she say to that, or just want it to share with somebody else, you'll have that in writing. And so we're working to keep that FAQ up to date, and we'll take all of these questions as well. If we are using Logitech rugged combo 3 keyboard cases in our district, and they are excellent. Okay, sorry, that's not a question, but good choice. Good, that's excellent. We look forward. This sort of speaks to this idea that, as this is new, this model, and we're always going to be learning. And one of the wonderful things about the way that the advisory board recommended MLTI 2.0 be designed is so that it's got it's a system of continuous improvement and checks. And so this first RFP, we worked hard to make what we all thought was wonderful, and get the best devices. We're going to learn over these 3 years from feedback from you all, different pieces that are wonderful, and different things that, going forward, we got to make sure we require this, right? Or we need to make sure there's color options, to be lighter on it. But either way, those are things that we're going to be learning to make better. And I will always say to you is that is one consistent commitment you will always get from this team, is that we are listening and adapting and taking that feedback. So please share with us positive experiences are always welcome, as well as challenges you're having. Because two things: one, we'll work to fix it, if not immediately, when we are able to update and change. But also, we've been finding that sometimes it's not, there is something we can do immediately to fix it or to change it, because it was something that wasn't known. And once we know that that's an issue, then we can work to mitigate that. So it's always a message that I want to be putting out there, is that we really appreciate that. If we would like to ask for a demo machine to see them firsthand, are there contacts we can reach out to? So great. We have, again, just started this process, and it's in my early communications to the vendors. It's been requested to say, if districts want to reach out, is there somebody in the meantime to get that in preparation for ordering? I have not received any of those back yet, because we're talking today. But as soon as I do, I will be sending those out for folks, so that you'll have somebody if you want to reach out to get a demo. I understand wanting to get them now, so I get that that's what this question is, and I'll get you that contact as soon as I have it. It, of course, is the choice of the vendor before they're actually contracted, whether they want to do that or not. But we can all imagine it behooves them to get the devices in your hands so you can pick what you want. Additionally, in our terms in the contract, what we're asking for is that they all provide, it'll obviously be remote right now in our situation, but demonstrations and information to you all, so that you can come and attend and ask questions and find out information about those as soon as the contract, that's part of it. And they'll do that every year, so that you're having really the sales pitch of what you're getting, or would be getting. And included in that, I would imagine you'd want to know the kind of relationship that you'll have with these vendors throughout the time that you have their devices. And if you have, this isn't an official question, but people have asked it of me, if you have a contact at one of these vendors, you don't have to wait for my permission to reach out. Like I said, they don't have to do anything per the contract yet, but it's certainly something that if you know somebody, if you've worked with one of these vendors before and want to say, hey, we're interested, are you willing to do this before the contract is executed? That's, There's nothing illegal about that for you to do. Yeah, so the question is when we think we'll be able to put in the orders, and it's going to be, in fact, I think I put the language in the day after the contract is executed immediately, because it will be a close turnaround. So that will be, but when that date is, unfortunately, and I can tell you, they're individual contracts with each of the vendors. So it may vary as well. So if one vendor's contract gets finished ahead of time, we don't wait for all there's 4 unique vendors. We don't wait for all 4 of them to be done. So when one is done, I will notify and say, it's open. You can order if you're interested in this device, and it will be available to you. So we won't wait. It's likely this year it will be a little bit staggered because contract negotiations vary based on vendor and their needs and their timeline. If the budget is approved 2 years from now, it will be to fund 1 grade level per year. Will it jump back to the 2 grade levels? We're planning for the refresh for our current devices, so this is helpful to know. The intent is that over the course, it will be 1 each continuous year going forward. And if it comes to a place where we need to look at that and reevaluate that, we will. But at this point, the plan is for the foreseeable future to add 1 year each year. And Roberta, since you mentioned you're new to the program, please feel free to reach out to any of our team at any time, and we're happy to chat with you more and walk you through some of the components that might be unfamiliar to you. So. We appreciate all of the sort of thanks for in the chat. It's now filling up sort of with thank you and for doing all of this. And I just, we all appreciate that, those sentiments. And it has been so much of a collaborative effort. We've had so many meetings with META and at Actum and throughout with the advisory board, and folks that just get together because they have an idea to share with us and have we considered this. And we so appreciate that this program is not only, I mean, I love the team that is at the DOE, the MLTI team is remarkable, but also that we have such a field of collaboration and sharing. And people, I appreciate not being afraid to sort of reach out and offer suggestions, and also being really understanding when with the sort of barriers or restrictions that we encounter, and being able to be thought partners together. So I thank you for saying that. To us, it is hard work, and we're working for you all the time. And thank you for all that you are doing out in our schools and making this program possible so that we can have something every day to get excited about and think about. And really for us, as we think about MLTI 2.0 and getting back into schools and getting reconnected with educators again, as MLTI launches, but also as we hopefully emerge from this pandemic, is really just promising. So thank you. And we'll stay on if there are no more questions. We'll update this FAQ, and this recording will be on our website at some point during probably Monday. I'll promise it by the end of the day, but we'll get it up as soon as we can Monday morning. And happy Mother's Day to the mothers, and have a great weekend. Oh, hang on. So I was going to sneeze there. Okay. Another question. If we opt to buy no staff devices this year, then next year we could purchase staff devices because we hadn't yet received any. Correct. We will be tracking what staff what staff devices you use, how many, and if none show up this year, and then next year you have all those 7th and 8th graders, then that will be allowed in that. All right, with no more questions, I'm gonna end our question and answer session and let everybody move on to their next meeting, or hopefully if this is the end of your day, to your weekend. And I wish you all the best, and we'll talk soon.